Good evening, everyone. I, Rudy Lopez, the president of the governing board, call this special board meeting of the San Isidro School District to order at 5 p.m. I would like to ask that all members of the board mute their devices at this time. Trustees of the San Isidro School District Board and the public shall participate in this meeting via teleconference. The public may view the open session part of this meeting by accessing the YouTube link provided in the agenda. To listen to this meeting in Spanish, please call area code 617-675-4444 and enter the access code 452-039-764-4556#. Para escuchar esta junta en español, por favor llame al 617-675-4444 e ingrese el código 452-039-764-4556, signo de gato. Members of the public are welcome to record this meeting using their own personal devices. Prior to roll call, I would like to make it clear for the record of this meeting, and it should be reflected in the minutes, that this governing board meeting is conducted pursuant to AB 361 and resolution number 21/22-0024. I will now ask the superintendent and secretary to the board, Dr. Potter, to conduct a roll call for attendance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Conducting roll call for agenda item number 2, beginning with board member Antonio Martinez.
Present.
Board member Humberto Gurmilan.
Here.
Board clerk Irene Lopez.
Present.
Board vice president Rosalia Palasigue.
Present.
And board president Rudy Lopez.
Here.
Mr. President, all 5 board members are here.
Thank you. I would now like to request that each board member respond to the following questions. Board member Martinez, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
Yes.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Gurmilan, can you hear me well?
I can.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
I could.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lopez, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
Yes.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Palasigue, can you hear me well?
I can.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
Yes.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask that you join me in the flag salute. We'll be displaying a picture of the flag on the screen. I would ask that those in the meeting, including other board members, to please mute to avoid feedback during the salute. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think I got it right. We're now going to item number 4 on the agenda. I will now ask each board member if they have any corrections or additions to the agenda. For this item and all other items on the agenda, I will give each board member an opportunity to speak by addressing each board member in turn. Please make sure to unmute your mic before speaking. Board member Martinez, do you have any corrections to the agenda?
No.
Board member Gurmilan?
None on mind.
Board clerk Lopez?
No.
Vice President Palasigue?
No.
I also do not have any changes to this agenda. I will now ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Martinez?
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Gurmilan.
A motion by Mr. Martinez, second by Mr. Gurmilan. Dr. Potter, will you please conduct the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Conducting the roll call vote for the approval of the agenda item number 4, beginning with board member Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Board member Humberto Gurmilan.
Yes.
Board clerk Irene Lopez.
Yes.
Board Vice President Rosalia Palasigue,
Yes.
Board President Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
Mr. President, the vote passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. We're on to item number 5, public comment on items both in closed and open session items. I believe Mr. Mata, do we have any speakers?
Mr. President, we do not have any public comment at this time.
Thank you very much. I will now entertain a motion to recess into closed session on the following items. 6.1, public employee discipline dismissal, release, reassignment, and 6.2, conference with labor negotiators.
So moved.
Mr. Martinez,
Second.
Ms. Palasigue, Dr. Potter will conduct a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. President. Conducting the roll call vote to recess to closed session, Board Member Antonio Martinez,
Yes.
Board Member Humberto Gurmilan,
Aye.
Board Clerk Irene Lopez,
Yes.
Board Vice President Rosalia Palasigue,
Yes.
Board President Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
Mr. President, the vote passes 5-0.
Thank you very much, Dr. Potter. We will now be recessing into closed session and we will reconvene at the end of the closed session. Thank you.
Mr. President, I count 5 board members.
Okay, we're gonna reconvene into open session at 6:16 PM. And we have nothing to report out from closed session. So we're gonna move on to item number 7. And 7.1 is a presentation supplement to the annual update to the 2021-2022 Local Control Accountability Plan.
We have 2 of our cabinet members presenting the presentation or overview for the supplement to the annual update for the 2021-2022 LCAP. This is kind of like the mid-year report card, progress report card for the LCAP. Our presenters this evening will be both our Chief Business Official, Marilyn Adriansen, and also our Executive Director of Educational Services, Cynthia Monreal Gonzalez.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Lopez, members of the board, Dr. Potter, and community. Tonight, Educational Services and Business Services will present the supplement to the annual update for the 21-22 LCAP. Assembly Bill 130 requires all districts to present a mid-year update on the 21-22 LCAP to the governing board and their educational partners. The report provides an update to the budget overview for parents, which will include the ESSER 3 funding, which has been added to the district's budget. Additionally, the report includes the implementation of the LCAP to date. So it's an expenditure and implementation data report. This slide represents the 21-22 budget overview for parents. So at the adopted budget, which was adopted by the governing board on June 24th, 2021, the total projected budget at that time for revenue was $66.8 million, which is the very last row on this slide. When the governor of the state adopted the state budget on June 28th, 2021, we were allowed to incorporate ESSER 3 funding and the concentration add-on funds. So the district's budget increased as a first interim to about $80 million. So the difference for projected revenue, estimated revenue from the time that the district adopted our budget of $66.8 million increased to $80 million. The difference is $13.2 million. The $13.2 million includes the ESSER 3 funding, the concentration add-on funds, and it also includes any carryover budgets from 2021 that were carried over from 2021 to 21-22.
As we look at some of the funds that we're going to discuss tonight, we just wanted to give you an overview of some of the state and federal one-time stimulus funds that are all restricted, and to just kind of give you an overview of what restrictions each of those funding sources has. So ESSER 2, among the allowable uses for that funding source this was one of the earlier ESSER allotments, preparing schools for reopening and all the testing required to do that, and in repairing and upgrading systems, HVAC systems, to improve air quality and safety for students, and then to address learning loss. When ESSER 3 rolled out, now we were already getting back to some on-campus learning, so the focus was on making that in-person learning safe, interventions for accelerating learning for students who may have lost instructional time, and then mental health needs of students as that it began to become apparent that students were definitely in need of those services because due to the pandemic. In addition to that, we also have dollars from the in-person instruction grant, which was allowable to support in-person instruction, just like the name implies. And then the last grant that we're going to discuss tonight is the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, which really focused on learning recovery, again, social emotional well-being, and ensuring that our students have meals and snacks throughout the day. As we look at the first goal of the LCAP, that goal is student achievement. This first slide is going to just highlight some of the primary actions within that goal that are in the LCAP. The first one is our sci-fi team. And our sci-fi team not only provides enrichment to students, but equally important, it allows our teachers to look at student assessment data and to look at that data to see how students are doing in terms of the instruction that they've received. And even more important than that, for that data to give them a path to discussing appropriate interventions or instructional items that they think will impact where students need to still do some improvement. So the budgeted amount for these expenditures is almost $1.2 million. We've roughly spent about half of that so far. So these are expenditures to date, they've actually been expended, not just the encumbrance. So that's $621,000. The funding source for this is ESSER 2 and supplemental concentration. Both of these funding sources are restricted and need to be used to support student learning. We have common assessment data to support this, and then analysis to inform instructional planning and STEM education. The next item is the temporary supplemental instructional staff. We did employ additional staff at each of our school sites. Our elementary school teachers have 1 intervention support teacher, and our middle schools have 2 intervention support teachers. At the middle schools, we placed an English language arts teacher and a math teacher. This is from our expanded learning opportunities grant, which is also restricted. So again, we've roughly expended about half of the amount, which makes sense because we're about mid-year with that action. The next item is to supplement instructional staff with paraprofessionals. So these are our instructional aides. The venue we took with this was to increase the hours of any paraprofessional. So this is our instructional aides, our HCA, our special education instructional aides, to offer them extra hours so that they could support with intervention groups. So students would have more access to small group instruction throughout the day. We have budgeted for $423,000 for that. So far, we've expended a little under $27,000, partially due to the fact that not all of our aides have engaged in taking this extra work on. And then the last one that we're going to highlight for you on this goal this evening are our academic intervention programs. This was a $2.4 million budgeted expenditure. So far, we've expended about $900,000. Again, the ELO grant and Title I, which is an additionally restricted title funding. And for this, we're using our certificated staff, again, those who were interested in doing this extra work and increasing the instructional day for their students by 1 hour to focus on learning acceleration. I wanted to give you some mid-year data as well on assessments. As you all know, we give common assessments throughout the district. So every student in every grade, K through 8, takes 4 assessments in English language arts annually and 4 assessments in mathematics annually. And those 2 assessments allow us to look at a point in time, and students are assessed on the same standards. So we can ensure that we have students learning the same standards throughout the district. If we look at English language arts, the blue column on the first one, these are our K2 students. We're at 60% at the end of the 2021 school year. So a mid-year snapshot of where they are today shows us that they're at 57%. So the expectation typically is that students on every assessment increase. So it's looking like we are on track to surpass the 60% where we were at last year. If we look at mathematics, the next column over for K2, they were at 79% at the end of the 2021 school year, and mid-year they were at 70%. These are assessments when I'm talking mid-year that were given in December. So truly it is just half of the year, and we'll see their progress on the next 2 assessments as we move forward. Grades 3 through 8, this is the same type of data from those common assessments. For ELA, our students ended the school year at 35%, and they're already outpacing where they were at the end of last school year at 49%. And then in mathematics, they were at 35%, and they are outpacing already mid-year at 37%. So all in all, while we know we have a lot of work to do in terms of student achievement, we have pushed in a lot of resources and supports, and our data is indicating that we are doing a good job of supporting students so they can start to bridge those gaps that they may have had from virtual learning. Okay, I'm going to do this one quickly. I know we've been sitting for a while and it's kind of long. So this is our English language proficiency. For English language proficiency, we do have additional professional learning that we have trained all of our instructional staff and administrators in strategies to support English learners. Our estimated budget is $73,000. We've expended a little under $40,000. This is Title III, which is restricted to support English language learners. The next item is English learner support, monitoring and support. We've budgeted right under $100,000 and have expended about $60,000. This is a general fund expenditure because it includes our testing assistants, whose main job is to assess students on state required assessments and progress monitor English learners, along with our data support specialist. These are considered core services to students, so we have to fund them from the general fund. We cannot use that restricted funding for those type of services. Another training that's focused on long-term English learners and specifically at our 2 middle schools is Avid Excel. We had a budgeted expenditure of right under $20,000 for this professional learning, and we have expended $14,800 of those dollars. Our hope is that this summer coming up, we would be able to engage more of our middle school teachers in that professional learning. And then the last item is English learner support for integrated ELD. You might remember from our board workshop that integrated ELD is putting in all of those supports for teachers, for students into all of the subject areas. So into math, into science, into every subject area. We have a budgeted expenditure for planning and coaching support. So far, we have not expended any money from that. It's just been very difficult. Typically, we would give teachers a substitute teacher, pull them out, plan with them, and then push back into their classrooms and do demonstration lessons or coach. We just have not been able to because of the staffing shortages, but it is our intention to try to get some of that done before the end of this school year. I have a little data on English learners. So when we look at that same common assessment data, but only look at our English learners, and this is only English language arts, the first column is our kindergarten through 2nd grade. So again, students are working on very foundational skills. We ended last school year at 56%, and we are mid-year at 53%. And I know this next column, grades 3 through 8, is a little more difficult to look at because the percentages are so low. But if we look at that 18%, students ended the school year of 2021 at that percentage. Mid-year, they're already at 20%. So that indicates to me that we're doing a decent job of supporting students with language. And then the other thing to consider that we reviewed in the board workshop is that students who are English learners, this doesn't disaggregate at what point they are on their English learner journey. Remember, we said that for English learners, if they reclassify in 5 years, that's exactly where we want them to be. So we have to take that into consideration. And these are grade level assessments. They match the state assessment in terms of language and academic rigor. So while it does look low, I am proud to see where they are, and I know that we can keep pushing them further. Something that I think is very positive this year, at the end of last school year, the 2021 school year, we only reclassified 2% of our English language learners. This year, to date, today, I just got this number. We have so far reclassified 6%. That number probably won't go very much higher. We have about 10 more students who could potentially reclassify. We're already in our state assessment window for this, so we will have to stop reclassifying students. But it is a significant increase in terms of the students who are being reclassified.
So goal 3 in our LCAP is the safety, climate, and student engagement goal. It ensures that all students are educated in positive academic environments that are welcoming, safe, and drug-free. So this first action includes our MOTF, maintenance operations, transportation, facility, personnel, and materials and supplies. So total budget for this action is $4.7 million. Expenditures to date, $3.1 million. It is split funded with the general fund. And that's mainly operations, staff and supplies, and routine restricted maintenance. So we are required to set aside 3% for RRMA out of the general fund. The next one is the campus security, about 1.1 million. We spent about 700,000. Also split funded general fund and supplemental concentration, so unrestricted and restricted funds. It includes all of our campus security and our campus aides as well. The next one is school safety plans. No budget for this. It's pretty much reviewed and revised by all schools, and the board approves school safety plans in January 2022. So it's incorporated, the expenditures are incorporated in the other action plans. Attendance initiatives, 540,000. We spent about 325,000 paid out of ESSER 2 restricted funds, one-time funds, and it's funding for our outreach consultants. Goal 4 is the social emotional support and well-being. All students will obtain the necessary social emotional skills to build resilience and thrive in an equitable educational environment, their community, and beyond. So in this goal, we have actions related to mental health support, temporary social worker support, 345,000. We spent about 161,000 and paid out of expanded learning opportunities grant, which is restricted. So the 3 temporary social workers and a contract for therapists with South Bay Community Services. The next one is a universal screener, $50,000. No expenditures to date. I believe this happens towards closer to the end of the year, Ms. Cynthia?
We just, it was just board approved towards the tail end of the last calendar year. And we just routed the rec, the PO, it's all there, and we're onboarding for implementation. So that's why you don't have the expenditure yet on your books, but you will probably in the next month.
Okay, so the universal screener monitors student needs for support with mental health. So that's the universal screener. The last one's Tier 1 social emotional curriculum, 15,500. We spent close to that, 15,475, paid out of Title I restricted funding, and it's the second step, second year implementation coaching.
Okay, the last goal that we're going to review with you tonight is parent engagement. So our goal is always to increase engagement with our families and their satisfaction with the educational process. So in terms of parent learning opportunities, we have a budgeted $27,964. So far year to date, we have expended close to $9,000. This is a Title I restricted expenditure. The expenditure so far has been used to pay for BICA, which is the Parent Institute for Quality Education. And we have purchased that for all of our school sites to be able to offer their families that workshop at every school site. And then one of our other goals has been to provide opportunities for parents that are specific to the student group. And I'll show you some data on the next page that more clearly explains that. Another primary action is parent communication. Again, it's a $0 budgeted expenditure because those expenditures are somewhere else in the plan. But we just wanted to remind you kind of the communication tools that we use: flyers, emails, text calls, and primary language support, which is very important for our community. And then the last item that we're going to highlight from Goal 5 is the district translators. The budgeted expenditure is $189,000. The expenditures to date are $114,680. This is a general fund expenditure because we are required by Title I to provide translation for families for groups that we have above 15% of our student population serving. So this just allows those families to have access to the educational environment. And then this is the last slide of data that we have as a mid-year check-in. Again, the parent workshops, we have Beacon, where we have that one workshop series per school site. We also have, due to COVID, that prior to COVID, Mr. Mata was hosting about 55 parent workshops a year, just to kind of give you an idea. Due to COVID and the limitations with it, we are very hopeful. He has an English class scheduled at the district office parent center, and we're hopeful that that will be able to happen. He has been trying to plan these, but due to COVID, it's just been something difficult to plan and just making sure that our community is safe. So we have one coming up. In terms of the targeted parent workshops that I wanted to highlight for you, as we were looking at creating this goal, we thought one of the things we really need to dig into is make sure that all of our different student groups have parent workshops that are specifically for their families. So our special education department has so far hosted 3 parent workshops that have been through the special education local plan area, or the SELPA, so that serves all of the South Bay community. And then our department has created 3 workshops with a mental health focus this year that they have already offered to families, and they're also available on the website if families were unable to see them. For our English learners so far, we have invited them, the families, to 2 of the mini CABE events. One happened in the fall, and then there is one happening actually on Saturday that we have invited families to. And then we also put out an invitation to the families of some of our English learners who serve at our school sites to go to CABE, which is happening in late March. So far for the military families, People Services has held one workshop and resource fair, and for our McKinney-Vento foster youth, there's been additional workshop and resource fair. This is not to say they're the only services parents are getting. It's just to say that in terms of what we would consider an education and teaching our parents about the educational community, this is what we have offered so far. And then I know Marilyn and I shared a lot of information, so if you have any questions.
Mr. Martinez?
No questions from me, but I'm just really impressed with the presentation, particularly the part of the parent engagement aspect, because frankly, when you talk about how we're going to improve the education of our students, half of that starts with parent engagement. Parents need to be involved, and more importantly, they need to make sure we need to make sure we're collaborating with our parents in order to ensure that the education of our kids continues at home. So frankly, I just want to let you know that I'm very, very impressed with the presentation aspect of what we've been doing with parent engagement. Significantly better than what I've seen for many years before. So I just want to applaud you, Cynthia and Marilyn, for making that happen. And there's only room to grow from there, but just really impressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cormelan?
No questions, Mr. President. Just also a big thank you for that awesome presentation and all the hard work. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Lopez?
Maybe Marilyn can answer this. What happens to, I know there's restricted funds that you can only use them for certain things, but how about the ones that had expenditure and they had money left? Where does that money go? Where does it stay? Does it go like the restricted? It stays there, doesn't it? Or does it have to be used? Otherwise, they lose it for the next year?
It depends on the restricted fund type. So for example, Title I, what happens with the carryover, if they don't spend it all, it goes back into a pot and then it's redistributed the following year. So it carries over, and yeah, the restricted fund carries over.
How about the ones that are not, if they're out of general fund or they're not budgeted in the restricted, if there is money left, what
Oh,
happens?
the unrestricted?
Yes.
It falls to the ending fund balance. So it funds it falls to the bottom.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
if, just to add, just for more clarity, and Marilyn will know the date. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Marilyn, but some of those one-time funds, like ESSER, like the ELO, like the educator effectiveness, they are restricted, and on top of that have an end deadline. But if we don't use it by that time, we lose it. But they're
Correct.
restricted in such a way we can only use it in a certain way.
Yes, they're
So-
highly restricted. Yes.
Okay.
With a spending deadline.
Okay, well, thank you for
You're
that
welcome.
information and your hard work. I know both of you worked very hard. So I'll give you a chocolate for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take it.
Thank you, Ms. Palasiga.
No questions for me. Thank you again. I know we've been talking about this in great length with some of our principals and such. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And no questions from me. Just thank you to Cynthia and Marilyn for that presentation.
You're welcome.
Following item number 8, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 6:41 PM.
So moved.
Mr. Martinez,
Second.
Ms. Palasiga, Dr. Potter, will you call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Calling roll call to adjourn the meeting, beginning with Board Member Antonio Martinez,
Yes.
Board Member Humberto Gurmilan,
Aye.
Board Clerk Irene Lopez,
Yes.
Board Vice President Rosalia Palasigue,
Yes.
and Board President Mr. Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
Mr. President, the vote passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank